human buys a riverside home and accidentally encounters his three alien neighbors at the river. Marcus Chen stood in front of his new home and smiled. The small wooden cabin sat on a gentle hill overlooking a beautiful river. The water sparkled in the afternoon sunlight like 1,000 tiny diamonds. After 15 years working on crowded space stations, Marcus finally had his own place. A place with fresh air, open space, and most importantly, peace and quiet. The real estate agent had called this property perfectly peaceful. She had mentioned the river, the forest, and the stunning sunsets. What she had not mentioned was that Marcus had just bought a home in a multi-species settlement zone. Marcus discovered this small detail only after signing all the papers. He spent his first day unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. The cabin had 2 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen, and large windows that looked out at the river. Marcus placed his favorite reading chair by the biggest window. From there, he could watch the water flow by while drinking his morning coffee. On his second evening, Marcus decided to explore the riverbank. He grabbed his old fishing rod from the storage closet and walked down the narrow path that led from his cabin to the water. The evening air felt cool and comfortable against his skin. Birds sang in the trees overhead. Their songs were different from earth birds, but still pleasant to hear. As Marcus walked, he noticed something strange. There were unusual tracks in the soft mud near the path. Some tracks looked like they came from very large insects. Others seemed to have webbed patterns like a duck but much bigger. A few tracks appeared crystalline, leaving tiny shimmering marks in the dirt. Marcus shrugged. "Must be local wildlife," he said to himself. The agent did mention some interesting creatures live around here. Marcus found a smooth rock to sit on and prepared his fishing rod. He took a deep breath of the fresh air and felt truly relaxed for the first time in years. Then he heard voices. Marcus looked upstream and saw 3 figures standing by the water's edge. They were not human. They were not even close to human. The first figure stood about 4 feet tall with a sleek insectoid body. Translucent wings caught the sunset light and created rainbow patterns in the air. The being had multiple arms and large, intelligent eyes that reflected the evening sky. The second figure was amphibious, with smooth skin that changed colors from blue to green to purple. Small bioluminescent patches along its body glowed softly in the dimming light. It stood on powerful legs designed for both land and water. The third figure was perhaps the most unusual. It appeared to be made entirely of living crystal. The being's body was transparent but somehow solid, with internal structures that caught and bent the light. When it moved, it created a soft chiming sound, like wind through glass. All 3 aliens froze when they saw Marcus. Their conversation stopped immediately. Marcus froze too, his fishing rod held halfway to the water. For several long seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke. The only sound was the gentle gurgling of the river and the evening birds singing their last songs before nightfall. Marcus had worked with many alien species during his years on the space stations. He had learned that most conflicts started from fear and misunderstanding. He had also learned that humans had a reputation in the galaxy. Some species found humans frightening. Others found them unpredictable. Many simply preferred to avoid them. The 3 aliens looked ready to run. The insectoid being's wings began to flutter nervously. The amphibious one took a step backward toward the water. The crystalline being's internal light seemed to pulse with anxiety. Marcus made a decision. He slowly lowered his fishing rod and raised one hand in a peaceful wave. Then he smiled and said in a friendly voice, "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" The crystalline being's chiming changed to a different tone, something that sounded almost curious. Marcus sat down on his rock and placed his fishing rod beside him. He made no threatening moves. He just sat there peacefully, looking out at the river and the sunset. After another long moment, the insectoid being spoke. Her voice sounded like wind through reeds, musical but also somehow precise. "You are the new owner of the Riverside property." "I'm Marcus. We did not know a human would purchase the property." "Please don't let me interrupt," Marcus said. He gestured at the river with an open hand. "There's plenty of river for everyone. I just came down to do a little fishing and enjoy the sunset." When she spoke, her voice sounded like musical notes, clear and ringing. "You do not wish us to leave. Besides, you were here first." The amphibious one's bioluminescent patches glowed a bit brighter, which Marcus guessed meant he felt more comfortable. The crystalline being's chiming took on a warmer, more melodic tone. Marcus picked up his fishing rod again and cast his line into the river. "I'm here most evenings if you want company," he said casually. "Or if you prefer privacy, I can fish upstream. Whatever works best for you." Marcus smiled to himself. Maybe his quiet retirement would be more interesting than he had planned. The next morning, Marcus woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window. He made coffee and sat in his favorite chair, looking out at the river. The water looked calm and peaceful in the early morning light. Marcus wondered if his 3 neighbors would return to the river today. He did not have to wonder for long. Around mid-morning, Marcus saw the insectoid being walking along the riverbank. She carried several woven baskets and moved with careful, deliberate steps. She kept glancing toward Marcus's cabin, as if checking to see if he was watching. Marcus grabbed a second cup of coffee and walked outside. He sat on his porch steps, far enough away to not seem threatening, but close enough to be friendly. He waved. The insectoid being hesitated, then slowly approached. Her translucent wings caught the morning light beautifully. Up close, Marcus could see intricate patterns in her exoskeleton, like natural artwork. "Good morning," Marcus said cheerfully. "I'm sorry I didn't catch your name yesterday. I come to the river to collect plants. They grow only in these waters. My hive uses them for medicine. I was just enjoying my coffee. I'm just the new guy here. Besides, if those plants help people, then I'm happy they grow nearby. They claim ownership of everything they can see. Sharing seems like the reasonable thing to do." Over the following days, Marcus established a comfortable routine. He learned that Cretha came to the river every morning to collect her medicinal plants. She always worked in the same area, about 50 yards upstream from his cabin. Marcus made sure to never disturb that section of the riverbank. On the 3rd day, the amphibious alien returned. This time, he brought 3 smaller versions of himself. His children, Marcus realized. They were adorable, with oversized eyes and bioluminescent patches that blinked on and off like little fireflies. The father saw Marcus on his porch and stopped. His children hid behind him nervously. Marcus set down his book and walked slowly toward the river. He stopped at a respectful distance. "Good afternoon," he called out. "I'm Marcus, the new neighbor. If you prefer, we find another location." He opened it and pulled out several smooth, flat stones he had collected from around his property. "I noticed the bank is pretty steep where you were standing," Marcus explained. "I thought maybe some stepping stones would help. You know, so the little ones can get in and out of the water more easily. I've got plenty of flat stones around here, and I'm not using them for anything. Where would you like them placed?" The 3 children watched with wide eyes, occasionally giggling at Marcus's attempts to communicate with their father. Dulmer's language included many bubbling sounds that Marcus could not quite reproduce, but they managed to understand each other through gestures and simple words. When they finished, Dulmer's children carefully tested the new stepping stones. They clicked and chirped with delight as they hopped from stone to stone, easily entering and exiting the water. "You have given my children a gift," Dulmer said, his deep voice filled with emotion. "This shows great kindness. But I'm glad they help." Marcus grabbed 2 glasses of cold water and went outside. He approached slowly and offered 1 glass to her. The crystalline being, who introduced herself as Yara, looked at the glass with curiosity. "I do not consume liquids in the same way you do," she explained in her musical voice. "But I appreciate the gesture of hospitality. What brings you to this part of the property?" "The minerals help maintain my crystalline structure and keep me healthy. In fact, I've been thinking, that spot by the big willow tree has the calmest water and the most sunlight. Would that be a better place for your weekly visits? You would allow me to choose the best location on your property." Dulmer had arranged several smooth, colorful river stones in a decorative pattern near his door. Yara had created a small crystal formation that caught the morning light and cast rainbow patterns across his porch. Marcus smiled as he looked at the gifts. He had moved to the Riverside hoping for peace and quiet. Instead, he had found something better. He had found neighbors who were becoming friends. As he drank his morning coffee, Marcus watched Cretha collecting her plants, Dulmer teaching his children to swim, and Yara standing peacefully in the sunny shallows. The river seemed more beautiful now, not because of the water or the scenery, but because of the life and community that surrounded it. Marcus had learned an important truth. A home becomes truly valuable not when you claim everything for yourself, but when you share it with others. 2 peaceful weeks passed at the Riverside. Marcus had settled into a wonderful routine with his 3 alien neighbors. Every morning, he would wave to Cretha as she collected her medicinal plants. Every afternoon, he would watch Dulmer's children play in the shallow waters, their bioluminescent patches flashing with joy. Every week, Yara would stand in the sunny spot by the willow tree, absorbing the beneficial minerals from the river. The 4 of them had even started having conversations. Cretha taught Marcus about the different plants that grew along the riverbank. Dulmer showed him how his people could change their skin colors to communicate emotions. Yara explained how her crystalline structure could detect subtle changes in water composition. Marcus felt happier than he had in years. His quiet retirement had become something special. He was building genuine friendships across species, something he had never expected. Then everything changed. Marcus woke one morning to an unusual smell. The air had a sharp, chemical odor that made his nose wrinkle. He walked to his window and looked at the river. Something was wrong. The water looked cloudy and had a strange, yellowish tint. Dead fish floated on the surface. Marcus rushed outside and down to the riverbank. The smell was stronger here, harsh and unpleasant. He knelt by the water and noticed an oily film on the surface. This was not natural. Something was polluting the river. Cretha arrived for her morning plant collection. When she saw the water, she made a distressed clicking sound. Her wings drooped with obvious sadness. "The plants are dying," she said, her musical voice now filled with sorrow. "Look, Marcus, the leaves are turning brown. The stems are wilting. Without these plants, my hive cannot make our most important medicines." What could cause this? Environmental protection laws apply to all colony planets. The company always finds ways to avoid responsibility. The little one was shaking, and its bioluminescent patches were flickering weakly. The other 2 children sat on the stepping stones, looking frightened and sick. "They were swimming," Dulmer said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Just like every day, but the water made them ill. My youngest cannot stop shaking. Right now." He watched as his neighbor hurried away, carrying his sick offspring with desperate speed. Marcus felt helpless and angry. Those children had been playing happily just yesterday. Now they were suffering because someone was dumping poison into their river. That evening, Yara came to the river for her weekly mineral absorption. Marcus tried to warn her away, but she had already stepped into the water. Within minutes, Marcus could see changes in her crystalline structure. The clear, beautiful transparency began to cloud. Dark spots appeared inside her body like bruises. Yara stumbled out of the water, her chiming now discordant and pained. "The minerals are wrong," she said. "Toxic compounds are mixing with the beneficial ones. My structure is being damaged." He felt devastated as he watched another friend suffering because of the polluted water. Over the next 2 days, Marcus learned the full extent of the disaster. Dulmer returned with the news that his youngest child would recover, but slowly. The medical treatment was expensive, and the child would need weeks of care. Cretha reported that all of her medicinal plants had died. Without them, her hive would struggle to treat illnesses and injuries. Yara's crystalline structure continued to cloud, affecting her health and even her ability to think clearly. But the worst news came when the 3 aliens met at the riverbank on the 3rd day. Marcus joined them, hoping to discuss solutions. Instead, he heard something that broke his heart. "We must find new locations," Cretha said sadly. "I must search for medicinal plants elsewhere. My hive depends on me. I cannot risk their health again." "It's where you meet, isn't it? It's where your 3 species come together. We have different values and customs, but here at this river we found neutral ground. We found a place where we could exist peacefully together. We have learned from each other." Cretha and Dulmer embraced carefully, mindful of their different body structures. Yara touched each of them gently, her chiming filled with sorrow. They spoke words in their own languages, words that clearly meant farewell. As the sun set that evening, Marcus sat alone on his porch. His 3 neighbors were gone, scattered to find new resources in different locations. The river that had brought them together, that had created an unlikely friendship between 3 different species, was now poisoned and empty. Marcus looked at the contaminated water and made a decision. He did not know exactly how yet, but he was going to fix this. He was going to restore the river, and he was going to bring his friends back home. One human against a corporation seemed like impossible odds, but Marcus had learned something during his years in space. Humans were at their best when they fought for others, especially when those others could not fight for themselves. The fight was just beginning. Marcus did not sleep well that night. He kept thinking about Dulmer's sick children, Kretha's dying plants, and Yara's clouding crystal structure. He thought about how a beautiful friendship between 3 different species had been destroyed by greed and carelessness. By morning, Marcus had the beginning of a plan. He spent the entire day at his computer, researching everything he could find about water pollution, environmental laws, and filtration systems. His 15 years working on space stations had taught him valuable skills. Space stations recycled everything, including water. Marcus had helped maintain those complex filtration systems. He understood how to remove contaminants and purify water. But understanding the problem and fixing it were 2 different things. Marcus needed help. He needed his 3 friends. More importantly, they needed to work together. That evening, Marcus sent messages to Kretha, Dulmer, and Yara. He asked them to meet him at the river the next morning. He promised he had a plan, but he needed their assistance to make it work. The next morning, all 3 aliens arrived at the riverbank. They looked surprised to see each other again so soon. Marcus stood waiting for them with a large rolled paper in his hands. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said. "I know you need to find new locations for your resources, but before you leave permanently, I want to try something. I want to try fixing our river." "They have political connections." "This is a barrier system I designed," Marcus explained. "It uses natural river rocks, specialized membranes, and biological filtration. If we build it correctly, it will catch the pollutants before they spread downstream. The water flowing past your collection areas will be clean again. And installation would be difficult for one person. Could they create organisms that eat certain types of pollutants? Dulmer, you and your people can work underwater, correct? The filtration system needs components installed on the riverbed. I cannot hold my breath long enough to do that work. My people are experts at underwater construction. We build our entire cities beneath the waves. We need to know exactly where the pollution is worst and how well our filtration system is working. Can you help with that? My people have technology that measures such things precisely. We need evidence so strong that even their lawyers cannot ignore it." She measured pollution levels at dozens of locations. Her people provided scanning equipment that recorded everything with scientific precision. The evidence was undeniable. The pollution came directly from the upstream facility's discharge pipes. Kretha contacted her hive. They produced special organisms that consumed the specific chemicals in the river. These tiny creatures ate the pollutants and converted them into harmless compounds. Kretha brought containers full of these helpful organisms to the river. Dulmer gathered members of his community who were skilled in underwater work. Together, they installed the base components of Marcus's filtration system on the riverbed. They worked efficiently, using their natural aquatic abilities to accomplish in hours what would have taken Marcus days. Marcus himself worked almost without rest. He built the above-water portions of the filtration barrier using materials from his cabin and supplies he purchased from the nearby town. He welded metal frames, attached filter membranes, and created channels to direct water flow through the cleaning system. But Marcus also did something else. He documented everything. He took photographs. He recorded video. He collected water samples and had them analyzed at an independent laboratory. He wrote detailed reports describing the contamination, its source, and its effects on the local ecosystem and inhabitants. Then Marcus filed an official complaint with the Colonial Environmental Agency. He included all his evidence, all his documentation, and testimonies from Kretha, Dulmer, and Yara about how the pollution had harmed them and their communities. 2 days later, representatives from the facility came to Marcus's cabin. There were 3 of them, all human, all wearing expensive suits. They looked angry. "Mr. Chen," the lead representative said in a cold voice, "we understand you have filed complaints against our facility. We are here to discuss this situation. You are violating multiple laws. One little river is home to creatures who depend on it for survival. One little river is where three different species found a place to exist peacefully together. One little river is worth more than your profits. Behind them came more members of their species, dozens of them. They stood beside Marcus in a show of unified support. "He is not alone," Creetha said, her musical voice strong and clear. Dulmer's patches glowed a defiant bright red. "We stand with our friend." They looked at Marcus, who stood firm and unafraid. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. "The Environmental Agency will complete their investigation," Marcus said. "If you have any intelligence, you will shut down your illegal dumping immediately and begin cleanup procedures. Otherwise, the penalties will be much more severe." They returned to their facility, and by that evening the dumping had stopped. Marcus and his three friends stood by the river as the sun set. The filtration system was working. Creetha's organisms were consuming the pollutants. The water was slowly becoming clear again. "We did it," Marcus said with amazement. "We actually did it." The hardest part was over, but the real work of restoration was just beginning. Marcus woke each morning to check the water quality. Every day it looked a little clearer. The yellowish tint faded. The chemical smell disappeared. Small fish returned to swim in the shallows. Plants along the riverbank started growing green and healthy again. The Colonial Environmental Agency completed their investigation. The facility upstream was found guilty of multiple violations. They were fined heavily and required to install proper waste management systems. The agency also mandated regular inspections to ensure the dumping never happened again. But the real changes happened at Marcus's Riverside home. Creetha was the first to return permanently. Her medicinal plants had begun growing again in their special spot upstream. She came every morning to tend them carefully, singing soft songs in her own language as she worked. The plants responded to her care, growing stronger and healthier than before. One morning, Creetha brought Marcus a small jar filled with golden liquid. "This is medicine from the river plants," she explained. "When you caught that fever last week, I noticed you looked unwell. This will help you recover faster." "You didn't have to do this." Dulmer returned with his three children the following week. The youngest had fully recovered from the pollution sickness. All three children were excited to see the clean river again. They jumped into the water using the stepping stones Marcus had placed, chirping and clicking with pure joy. Dulmer approached Marcus with something held carefully in his webbed hands. It was a collection of the most beautiful river stones Marcus had ever seen. Each one was perfectly smooth and had unique colors ranging from deep blue to bright green to purple. "My children and I searched the riverbed for these," Dulmer said. "We wanted to give you something special. Something that shows our gratitude. You gave them a future where the water is clean." It stood 3 feet tall and was shaped like a tree with branches that caught the sunlight. "Place this in your garden," Yara said, her chiming voice full of warmth. "It will create music when the wind blows. It will cast rainbows when the sun shines. It is my gift to you." But something unexpected began to happen as the weeks passed. Other aliens started appearing at the river. First came a family of creatures with feathered bodies and 4 arms. They had heard about the clean river and the human who protected it. They came cautiously, unsure of their welcome. Marcus greeted them warmly. "There's plenty of river for everyone," he said with a friendly smile. Then came a group of beings who looked like walking plants, with bark-like skin and leaves growing from their heads. They needed to stand in water once a week to stay hydrated. They had traveled from far away after hearing about the safe, clean river. Marcus showed them the best spots where the water was deepest and calmest. Next arrived creatures that resembled large, intelligent rabbits with crystalline eyes. Their children loved to play in shallow water. Dulmer's children immediately befriended them, and soon the 2 groups were playing together happily. More species came. Some were strange and wonderful, some were shy and nervous, but all of them found welcome at Marcus's Riverside home. Marcus realized something needed to change. His small property was becoming a gathering place for multiple species. He needed to make it more accessible and comfortable for everyone. He spent 2 weeks building a communal area near the riverbank. He created different types of seating for different body types. He built shade structures for species that needed protection from the sun. He installed ramps and platforms so everyone could access the water safely, regardless of their physical abilities. Creetha, Dulmer, and Yara helped with the construction. Other aliens contributed too, each offering their unique skills and abilities. The project became a community effort. When they finished, Marcus stood back and looked at what they had created. It was beautiful. It was functional. It was a place where any species could come and feel welcome. Word spread throughout the multi-species settlement. The Riverside location became known as a peace zone, a place where different species could interact safely and respectfully. Some called it the Bridge House because it bridged the gaps between different communities. One evening, representatives from all the species who used the river gathered for a special ceremony. Marcus did not know what to expect. Kretha spoke first. "Marcus Chen, you have done something remarkable. You have created a place of unity. In recognition of your efforts and your character, we wish to name you officially. In my language, you are called Shern Alkri, which means guardian of shared spaces. I don't know what to say, I just did what felt right. These are the marks of true character. Insectoid, amphibious, crystalline, feathered, plant-like, and many others, all of them different, all of them unique, and all of them gathered peacefully at one river. That night, Marcus sat on his porch with a cup of tea. The crystal sculpture chimed softly in the evening breeze. He could hear Dulmer's children playing in the shallows with their new friends. He could see Yara standing in the moonlit water, her structure glowing softly. He could smell the sweet scent of Kretha's medicinal plants growing healthy and strong. Marcus had come to this riverside home looking for peace and quiet. He had wanted a simple retirement away from the crowded space stations. Instead, he had found something far more valuable. He had found purpose. He had found friendship across species boundaries. He had found a community that valued cooperation over conflict. Marcus smiled as he watched the moonlight dancing on the clean, clear water. His little river had become a symbol of hope, proving that different beings could not only coexist but thrive together. One human's compassion had started it all. One human's determination had protected it. And one human's willingness to share had transformed it into something beautiful. The river flowed on, carrying with it the promise of continued friendship, understanding, and peace.